Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Everquest Old School. And I am over in Unrest with my Cleric yet again in the fireplace room at level 23. We're about 4, almost 4. I mean, we're at 3.5 bubbles into our levels, so not too much longer till we get to level 24. And level 24 is going to be a pretty big game changer. We're going to get some new spells, which we have on our. You can see that there's some stuff out of order. And that's basically because when I died earlier, I didn't loot the heavy backpacks that I have full of bronze armor for my SK because I don't really need it on me all the time. The quartz will last for a good decent amount of time, and I can just drag it down to the entrance when I get ready to go because I do have invisibility versus undead. Thanks, I appreciate the support. I've always deserved a movie. Oh, they're talking about the Ratchet and Clank movie because this character over here next to me is called Ratchet, and then his last name is and Clank. But they were talking about something in guild chat here, and I just wanted to bring it up because I think that some people might be worried about creating the perfect character. What she was talking about, I'm guessing it's the she because she had kind of that kind of name, but I guess it could be anybody. But what they were talking about was that they had made a warrior that was a halfling, or I think it was a tree city. What was it? A wood elf. So they had made a warrior that was a wood elf, and at certain point in the game, people began to realize that hey, some of these classes, some of these races were better suited to certain classes, and by quite a bit. I think somebody was saying that by the time you hit, level 50, your class bonus, the innate wisdom or the innate intelligence, the innate strength or stamina that you gave your character when you first created him, and then certain races actually started with a higher bonus to that specific skill. So if you played a orc or a troll, you were going to start with a higher level of strength than somebody else could ever get to, even pumping points into it. That was just their base, and then you could pump even more points into it. And I think somebody was saying it's about 400, or it might have been 800 extra mana or hit points because of that. For the power wise, 400 power or even 800 power. I think it was 400 though, but 400 power is still a great deal. That's like 2 or 3 extra complete heals from full mana, which is amazing. That's a huge increase, like I was talking about in one of my earlier episodes, where you'd get 4 or 5 or 6 pieces of armor that were like the ones you were missing, that were the best pieces in the game, and it would give you like 3 or 400. This is what I said back then, and you would get that extra 3 or 4. And maybe I didn't say 400, but I said 3 or 4 extra complete heals because of the pieces of armor, because it's adding so much wisdom, getting you up to, I believe the cap is 250. And after 250 wisdom, instead of getting the, I think it was 10 power for every wisdom, after that it was cut dramatically. I think it was like 5, and it went down to like 2 or something like that, or 1. And so what your options were then were to get pieces of armor that had not only wisdom on them, but power, like mana, period. So instead of, saying you get an item that has 20 wisdom, which is amazing for somebody who's not at their cap yet, you have just an item that says maybe you have like 10 wisdom, but 15 mana. Because the 15 mana will always be 15, it won't change because you reached a cap. And so at a certain point, that extra 15 or 20 or 60 mana, instead of translating over into 6 points of wisdom like it is below your cap, at above the cap, it dramatically changes into not just 6 wisdom, but maybe like 20 or 30 extra wisdom, because once you hit that 250 cap, you're no longer getting that 10. You're getting somewhere in between, and like I said, I think it even goes down to 1 at some point when you get past a certain point, and you just kind of want that extra mana instead, and that way some of those items will actually change in value as people reach those max skill points. But certain classes are suited more towards certain races, which is what I was saying. Like a high elf cleric is a really, really good cleric to have because they start with pretty much the highest wisdom you can do. And then I pumped all of my points into wisdom when I started this character. Okay, see you later. I have to leave. You can catch the... okay, so I guess he's leaving. Looking for more for fire police. Mistel. Okay. Hold on a second, guys. I need to take care of this. For some reason, I am the group leader. I somehow got tossed that role when somebody left. Um, I just want to make sure the group doesn't fall apart because I'm not paying attention to that role. It's really suited to a cleric who's not doing anything else, but because I do these videos, I'm not always paying attention. That's me. Let me ask what's going on. Do we need... Because there was a duo here earlier, the shaman and the necro, who were asking for a group, but they were asking for a group together. And you'll constantly see that every so often in pretty much every zone that you go to. The shaman is coming, but the necro may have left. Trained a zone. Okay, so they do have one coming at least. But yeah, you'll see people who are either, like husband and wife, or father and son, or daughter, or whatever the case is, mother and daughter, playing together, friends that know each other in real life, or have met over other video games and kind of transferred over to this one. And they always make sure to log on with each other, and they hunt with each other and stuff like that. So you will see duos going around. And some people are like, oh, they're two boxing because they're always on together and they're always, helping each other out. But, that is kind of a cynical way to look at it. Yeah, I mean, you probably see a lot more people two boxing than you will see grouping together like that, because every time that you're on, it's pretty extensive, even for people who like each other. There's usually a few times here and there. I have to go, lads. Okay, so we're about to break up the group here, guys. I am going to go ahead and pause the video and try to reform this group before we lose it completely, and I will start it up here in a minute, guys, so hold on one second. Hey guys, so I am back, and basically that group pretty much just broke up, and we didn't have the best of the ways to end a group. Somebody died, and they were still on their way back, and pretty much everybody left, and I'm like, this is just pretty horrible to end the group like that. But I was like, you know what, I'll go ahead and pick up all my bronze, we'll go ahead and go back to town, put the stuff in the bank, run over, and maybe trade the stuff to our Shadow Knight for this last piece of the episode, because it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to find any more groups in that zone anytime soon. It's, it's pretty late at night, and you get to having a pretty difficult time replacing people at a certain point. I don't know if I went too far. I think I might have. Let me come back over here. It's very, very easy to pass if you're not completely paying attention. In fact, I think I did. I think this is it over here. Let's run back over. Yeah, I think it is. And if you pass it, the worst part is you'll go around in a giant circle, and you end right back up where you left off. No, I guess it is a little further down. That's not the right. Or is it? Actually, I think this might be it. I could just be running around in circles. Nope, it's not it yet. Okay, it's a little further down then. But yeah, you gotta kind of pay attention. But again, the group kind of just broke up, and I actually found a really, really nice druid called Nindari, and oh great, I got something on me. Aqua Goblin. Oh, this is not going to end well for me. Let's see. I guess I will stop. See if I can cast Root. There we go. I didn't have it targeted. See if I can cast Root. Did it take? I don't think it did. You regain your concentration. No, it's still hitting me. Let's get a little further down here. If we can't find it soon, I am just going to gate back and a rat. We don't have to worry about that. Probably should have passed it by now, to be honest. I think we did pass it. This sucks. I got, like I said, I got Spirit of the Wolf and I got Levitation. This is the perfect time to... Oh, no, we haven't passed it. There it is, right over there in the distance. Okay, let's try to avoid this guy. And then we're going to haul butt over there. Is it over there or over there? It's one of these. That might be it right there. it's really hard to see because again, oh great, got a skeleton there. Because again, all these rocks and walls look the same. There's no real big kind of monument to look out for and be like, oh, okay, there's a huge rock or there's a huge tree. That's where I need to go. Pretty much everything looks the same, and you may be thinking, oh, well, that's just because they have very, very poor graphics. Well, kind of, but then not really, because they've made other zones look completely different from a certain part on the map versus somewhere else. They did this on purpose. Even if they had the ability to do better graphics, they still would want it to kind of blend into one another so that you'd had a hard time picking out the features of the or the landscape, and therefore it would add to the difficulty of getting lost and just making it difficult all around to travel in. And traveling was a pretty big part of this game. That's not something new video games in general ever really taken advantage of. In the old days, you would have, like, with the text-based games, really a whole lot. You would have the journey of getting there to the location, because once you got to the location, that was time to act, that was time to do your thing. But on the journey there, that was your time to, like, explore and pick things up that you would then use when you finally got to your location, so that you would have a better chance of defeating the dragon or whatever the case is, whether it was armor or knowledge or spells. That was the time you pick stuff up. And so people greatly enjoyed the journey rather than always the destination. They remember, oh, along that path I found this really cool weapon. They didn't find this stuff in dungeons. Dungeons were the place where you tested what you had found. And if you, went out and you did enough, then you would be able to, actually get through that area. If you didn't, you may have to go back and kill for a little while, kind of grind some points of experience to level up. And this is a really, really long run. I don't remember it being really this long, but I remember it being kind of a pain in the butt. Oh, and that guy finally caught up with me. So he was running after me this whole time, and somehow, even with Spirit of the Wolf and a strength buff and levitation, I still didn't outrun that guy. And that's just showing you how overweight my guy is right now. It's basically because he's carrying 2 backpacks full of bronze armor. Half of that armor is for my Shadow Knight, and the other half is for my Paladin. And that's just one of those things you're going to go through if you're going to kind of try to tweak out your characters a little bit. And the only reason I'm really doing that with either my Shadow Knight or my Paladin is tanks are a very, very different class to play from scratch than, say, a Cleric or even a Wizard or something like that that relies on their power. Because if you're able to root the object or otherwise not get hit by the mob, then you don't really count on your armor as much as somebody else will. Because again, the extra wisdom or intelligence you have makes a difference, but at a low level, the thing that makes the biggest difference is pieces of armor that add pure hit points or pure power, because the amount of wisdom and the amount of intelligence you have is in correlation with your level. So at a lower level, you're going to get less from it than at a higher level. And I think at level 35 or 25, somewhere around there, is when that penalty kind of goes away, and you're getting the full benefit of every little bit of wisdom or intelligence you have, and every little bit of, like, the strength and stuff like that. So before that, though, basically you wanted to have, that's just a dead end over there, you wanted to have as many items on you that just added pure health or pure power, because you're going to get more from that. But at a certain point, you won't have to worry about that anymore, is what I'm saying. Wait, they lowered Prime. What is that? 0%? I don't know what they're talking about over there. This is my guild who's actually talking for once. It's kind of strange. I haven't really seen them, chat down there very often. Again, I don't know what their schedules are. I don't know if they're more European or more, American as far as, like, the time goes, because you'll find that in certain servers where people will kind of only get on at certain, during their daytime, or if there's a whole bunch of night owls. It's usually kind of nice to have in a guild, is to find people who are, playing during the day, obviously, and maybe they just got off of work and they can play for, 5 to 9 or something before they have to get off, so they got a few hours there. Or maybe they play before work or before school or during summer break, are usually the worst ones to have. Not just because you'll have people from all ages that are still going to school, so you'll still have very, very immature, very, very young kids playing and kind of just messing things up because this is a community game. So when one person is doing something stupid, it affects the whole zone, whether they're a little kid or not. And uh, usually, all that does for like summer vacation or especially like spring break is it just makes the game really crowded for a few days with a whole bunch of knuckleheads, and then it goes back to normal. But during those 2 days, it's like, why even log on? It's just going to be a nightmare to deal with all that kind of stuff. And you'll see that in other games, like, I don't want to mention any in particular, but you guys probably know a few of them out there that are primarily for younger kids. And like I said, not all younger kids. I don't want to like put them all into one little category and be like, oh, you guys are all knuckleheads and stuff. But when I was that young, I was, immature and I was stupid and I did a bunch of things that you look back and you just shake your head at like why, like why would I don't even understand what my own thinking was at that time. Um, but then again, you have people who are very, very mature for their age. So I hate to put it down to a narrow group, but you do notice it, so it's kind of hard to ignore the fact that it is a noticeable change when like summer breaks out and spring break and stuff. And you just kind of have to deal with it. There's groups, there's guilds out there that are all, younger people or all people in like the 20s and 30s and stuff like that. So, you just have to find the one place that you fit. Orkill looking for more. It's amazing that people are still over at Orkill. I love that about this game, that there's people at all stages. That guy shouting or doing OOC looking for more people at Orkill might very well be, just brand new to the game, and he's experiencing that for the very first time. Or it could be a guy who just came back, from years upon years of not playing, and he wanted to experience that all over again. You just never know, but it doesn't really matter because it's still a very cool sensation regardless of that. So what I'm doing now is I'm running back over to the High Elf City so that I can deposit a few items that my Shadow Knight doesn't need, because I'm going to be going on the boat. And as soon as I get to town and we start putting some stuff away, because I'm sure you guys want to see like the conclusion of the travel here, just in case you wanted to see how to get to the High Elf City and you didn't already know from Unrest. You can kind of follow along with this. Now, traveling through the cauldron is very, very dangerous, as you guys have seen many, many times on my episodes. So I would be very, very careful with that area. Did I travel too far? I think I might have traveled too far, actually. No, maybe not. Yeah, I'm off on my timing on this stuff. Yeah, the city's going to be right up here. And, of course, you can follow the path all the way up here and then just take a right. Now, as a cleric who's coming over here at this level, it's really, really cool if you can find some people kind of sitting around that are low level and just toss a few buffs on them. If you're a shaman, toss Spirit of the Wolf or Strength or something like that on them. Let's see, how much time do I have on that? Well, if I don't catch the tail end of the boat, Spirit of the Wolf should last me not only to Freeport, but maybe even over to Neck, because if it doesn't, like I said, I'm at like 100 and something, 136, 140 pounds out of like 70 something, and that's the last I checked. That was before I picked up, I think, the 2 backpacks. So yeah, we'll have to check that out real quick and see what I'm at. I'm at 151 at 86, which means I would barely be moving right now. Oh, and there's that the paladin that we saw earlier. That's funny. We'll go ahead and wave. It's funny how you'll be grouping with people from time to time, and then you'll actually like just run into them randomly as you're traveling from one destination to another. And usually you guys will, wave or do something to acknowledge each other, and then either continue on your way or talk to one another and find out where the other one's headed, and maybe even join, as traveling partners to get to the next area, just because you know each other, which is very, very cool. But I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here, guys, and we'll pick it back up in just a second. Hey, guys, so we are back. Now, what I wanted to go over is we're at the dock, and we're basically waiting for the boat to appear. You guys can kind of see that it's raining. It's really, really foggy. Now, if you're not sure how to get to the dock, I have done it on other episodes, and I guess I probably should have just done it on this one as well, since not only are we going over to drop some loot off to our Shadow Knight, but since we're going to be on that continent anyways, I figured we'd go ahead and try out High Hold or High Keep to see if maybe we can find some groups there. We probably can, because it's a fairly used zone that Do apologize, guys. It's a fairly used zone that tends to have quite a bit of groups in there, kind of like Unrest or even Mistmore. So we shouldn't have too big of a problem. It's going to be kind of cool because we haven't gone there this playthrough, and it's pretty weird because that's where I went the first time around. In fact, I went there on multiple characters, and I remember sitting there in those, those low-level groups and working my way down further and further into the mine shaft, and it was a really, really good time, and I greatly enjoyed that zone. So I'm very anxious to go over into that region and kind of experience for, the first time all over again, and to experience with all of you as well. So we're going to go do that, and I'm thinking that somewhere along the way we'll leave that area fairly quickly if we can kind of get into one of each one of the camps and kind of experience it, because I want to save the majority of that area for my Shadow Knight, who's going to be leveling up in the traditional way that my guy leveled up back in the day, which was Orc Camp 1 and then Orc Camp 2, and then going over to Western Commons and doing the Orc Camp and camps near that. There's like 3 or 4 of them in there that you kind of work your way into the zone, and by the time you reach the last one, you're right there on the outskirts of I think it's Kithakor Forest. It's a forest of some kind. I think it's Kithakor, and it's really, really dangerous in that zone. And what you want to do is hug the right wall, and you keep following the right wall all the way to Highhold. And then once you get into Highhold, the pass itself is usually clear, because once the mobs spawn, they walk down this narrow corridor to these guards, and they'll kill like the first couple of guards because they're pretty strong, and the guards aren't exactly that much of a challenge to them. But eventually they die off, and if nothing engages them when they spawn for like the first 45-50 seconds, they begin to walk down that path. And so there's never really any up unless there's a group there, and then the group will kill them constantly. And you can get some pretty good loot there. You can get a bag that's weight reduction. I remember back in the day, you could just walk into that zone and be like, hey, can I get one of these bags? Because you could only have one. Like most weight reduction backpacks are usually lower, and you could only have one of those. So most of the time, there was just bags there rotting. But I've seen lately that there's not really a whole lot of people there anymore, and there's usually not even a group at all. So what I see a lot of people do is they go back there by themselves at a higher level and just kill under the name guy spawns and see if they can get a bag that way. Which, I guess if that's the way you have to do it, that's the way you have to do it. But it's not exactly the way I would highly suggest. I don't really enjoy camping a spot long after I can't make experience with it. I like going there when I can get a challenge out of it and get experience with it, and everybody else is getting experience, because camps in their nature are very, very long waits, and it's kind of like sitting here waiting for the boat. You're going to be sitting there for a great deal of time just kind of waiting for the name guy to spawn, and then when he does spawn, like I said many times before, you have to share that with everybody that's there. So if there's 3 people who need it, or 5 people who need it, which is even worse, then you have to random with everybody, and it just takes a really, really long time to get that piece of armor that you're really hoping to get. So if you can sit there and get experience while you're doing it, like you guys see over in Unrest, where I've kind of been on the main room. I went there at like level 13, and I stayed basically to level 21, almost level 22, before I left. And that was a large chunk. That was like 2 months worth of fighting in one room, versus at higher levels, it's going to be even longer fighting in that one single room. So if you can actually get something you can use from that room at the time that you're there, it gives you a little bit of boost to go a little further, a little longer, rather than just like, oh, all I'm getting is experience here. There's no reason to be here versus somewhere else. So I'll go someplace else for a change, which is good, but if you can get that extra piece of loot there, it allows you to stay in one area, and staying in one area will allow you to get accustomed to the people who are there, because a lot of people will do that, just kind of travel to one spot, that may be kind of difficult to get to, and then just stay there for a few weeks or a month. And if people are there longer, you get to know them, versus, basically coming into a zone and every day seeing, 500 different people that you never met the day before, and you never see any of the same people again, because there's just constant people to replace them, and everybody's kind of being pushed out into like separate instances, and you just never meet the same person twice, and it doesn't give you that connection. It doesn't allow you to form a community, because there's just too many to really feel a connection with anybody. It's like living in a huge city like New York, or even in Houston or LA or something like that, where you walk down the street and hundreds of people pass you, and they may even pass you a couple times a week or a month, but you're not going to recognize them because in that week or in that month, hundreds of thousands of people pass you. So if you have too big of a community, it kind of takes away from that closeness, that tight-knit group that you can kind of get otherwise. And I think games really have to balance that somehow. Creating servers kind of does that, but it separates the communities to the point where you isolate it, and now the communities diverge into two different directions, and you're having to appease both of them at the same time with different patches, or they both want different things, and you have to find some middle ground when you come up with your expansions. Whereas if you just had them on one server, they would grow and change together, and so you would just have one thing to worry about. But I don't know if that's even possible. When I see it in other games where you just have too many people, it doesn't really seem like if you get to that point, there's anything really you can do about it. Because if you add more zones, you just spread people out, but a lot of the time people will try to go to where the people are, and so you'll just have more people clumped together in one region, and it will be a nightmare in that one region, and everywhere else will be empty. And so you really have to promote people to leave that, or even force them out after a certain point, which I've seen people or games do, where you start in a region that you can never go back to, and you get to like level 1 to level 15, and once you hit level 15, you're forced out of that newbie zone into like the real world, and everybody starts pretty much in a different region based off of like their class and their race and things of that sort, which I think is a good technique to a certain extent, because what it does is it spreads you out all over the continent or all over the world or the universe that they've created, but at a point where you're no longer feeling like you need that safety blanket. Like you got up to level 15, you're no longer thinking, well, this is the only town I've ever known, so I'll just stay here because it's the one I started in. When you're forced to basically leave that known area and never able to go back to it, you're immediately cling to the new area that you're in. You're like, okay, this will be my hub. This will be the place that I anchor myself and I come back to and sell. So I'll get very familiar with this like I did the original place. And if you do that, everybody kind of separates in different areas. The only downside to that is it's by race or by class, and therefore you have groups of people who are all like enchanters all hunting together, and that kind of creates a lopsided gameplay. So I kind of wish that they would do it more towards an even balance, like almost that you got to pick to a certain extent qualities that would separate you enough but still make it random enough that pretty much all different classes and races were spawning in one area or the other area in different areas and spread apart evenly. But if you made it too easy for people to tell, they would just pick those classes and those races and those traits, so they could start someplace that everybody wanted to start, and they would just negate the whole thing all over again. So again, I think it would be one of those things that is just a very, very fine balance in figuring out how to do that and what the appropriate measure for doing that is. And this boat is like never going to come. I wanted to catch it on camera while I was talking, but it doesn't seem to want to show up. There is something out there in the distance, but that looks like the boat or the little things for Cleric, so we're not going that route. But yeah, it does look like they're getting closer. I have seen both boats show up around the same time, so maybe that one will show up, and then this one, but it doesn't appear to be. And it's very, very hard to see anything with this rain, but I love the sound. I love kind of just sitting here listening to the rain just fall. Very relaxing. I like this a whole lot more than I like sitting here when it's not raining. So I think I got kind of lucky on that to be able to have that experience again. And let's see, you can kind of see the stars up in the sky as well, little twinkling ones. So I do love the way this looks. And there you go, you can see them coming in. There is a little bit of chop to it because they're so far away. If you move closer, you'll see a little bit more smooth, kind of like that right there. You also see that kind of choppiness on things like this, because back in the day, this was like a new thing to integrate into a game, things that actually moved, that the players could get on and then move with them. And you hadn't seen that in other video games, so when a boat showed up that then you could ride to your location, it was like freaking amazing. That was just one of the coolest things I remember seeing at all. It got old fast, yeah, I give it to you that, because waiting for half an hour to an hour for your boat to show up was enjoyable for the first like 8 or 9 or 10 times, until you had to do a corpse run constantly over and over and over again to a certain area that you had to take the boat on, and you quickly learned to go ahead and get yourself a bind. It just risked the fact that you might be stuck there for a while without a teleport out or something. But it, sorry man, I discovered group and sub. Oh, he got a disco group, which is a really good group to get into sub, I think. But I think we're going to go ahead and stop the video for a moment, guys. I will pick it back up when the boat gets here. This is going to be a longer video, and it's actually been cut up into many pieces, so I hope... Actually, no, we're going to go ahead and end the video here, because I think if I do too many sections, the sound will kind of get messed up by like the 4th or 5th video, like some of you have seen before, where the sound is off by a few seconds. So I think I'll go ahead and end the video here and start up a fresh one when we get on the boat and start traveling. So again, guys, if you like these episodes, please hit that like button, subscribe. Definitely leave comments down below, because I love hearing back from you guys. And I will catch you next time.